So I'm going to be talking to you about water resources. So some of the main things that we need to talk about is, well, let's start off. How many of you here drink water or have used water in some way, shape, or form in the past, let's say, 24 hours? Yeah, exactly. All of us. It's a very important thing. It's a necessity for life, for our environment, just for us in general. My name is Duane Comm, and I'm going to be talking to you about water resources and how much of it we actually have. So some of the main points that people think is that, well, we have plenty of water. Why should we ever worry about it? 75% of the earth is covered in water. But that's not really the case. I'm going to get to that later, but some of the things that we really need to focus on is that we don't actually have as much water as we think we do, and we're not using it in the most efficient way. We are contaminating it and making it so that it's no longer usable and just using it inefficiently. So to my main point one, how much fresh water do we really have? Fresh water is very different from just water in general, because we do have about 75% water, 25% land. It's pretty reasonable. But in a study conducted by Howard Perlman, a writer for the USGS, called How Much Water is in, on, and Above the Earth, it turns out that there's only about 4% of the Earth's water is actually fresh water, and more than 3% of that is locked inside of permafrost and glaciers. So in reality, we have less than 1% of actual fresh water that we can be working with for all of our needs, for drinking, for irrigation, just life in general. And then so the other point is, how much water are we actually using? So this goes off of how much of a water resource we actually have and how we're using it. The average Minnesotan uses about 75 gallons per day per person, not per household. This is per person, and that's pretty astounding that we have one of the largest amounts of fresh water because all of our nice, amazing lakes that we all know about. But then you have places like Idaho that are using around 150 gallons per person, and that was a study conducted by the EPA in 2016. Now, on to the other thing. What are we doing with our water? Sadly, it's not as nice as it seems, and we're contaminating it. So some of the ways that we're just contaminating it is we have drain pipes, right? And yeah, that's not always the best thing because our water can be contaminated by people just throwing trash straight into there, which is just unfortunate. So people can just walk by, just say, you know what, I don't really need this plastic bag or doohickey, I'm just gonna throw it right over there. No one will ever suspect it. And then the other thing is on how we're contaminating our water, which is a lesser known way, this is more of Minnesota lakes kind of thing, is that, so when you go out boating, you're supposed to clean your boat before and after every use, because, you can't be bringing invasive species from one place to another. And if you do bring an invasive species, it's going to ruin the entire lake's biome, which will, ruining an entire biome of a lake or water resource is just going to destroy it completely. So, review of our main points. How much water we actually have? Not very much. What are we doing with it? Not a whole lot. We're using it poorly, we're contaminating it, it's being wasted. And what you need to take away from this presentation is that our water resource should be like the ring to Smeagol, very precious.